All right, my name is Brant, and I'm an alcoholic. My sober date is July 1st of 2016. My home group is the Sober at Sunrise group. It meets here at the Alano Club at 9 o'clock, and I'm the treasurer for the men's meeting. And it's about everything I can remember about myself right now. I know it's not proper form to kind of do this from the podium, but I was doing all right with doing this. Like, I wasn't too nervous. I wasn't freaking out. And then Wednesday night, one of my friends, Curtis, came up to me and he said, "Hey, are you nervous?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm nervous." He was like, "Just so you know, if you blow your icebreaker, you blow your whole story." I hate you, Curtis. But yeah, I'll just jump into it. Is this weird? Are we good? Okay. I was born in, there's a couple of things I want to get out of the way. There's a lot of guys I don't know at these meetings nowadays. I've just a little over 6 years sober, and I've had 6 years of my life just getting bigger and bigger. And there's a lot of new guys that are on fire and have these really great things to share. And I'd love to get to know you, and I'd love to get to hear you, and more importantly, I would love to hear your plan. You know what I mean? I want to know what is going on in your head, because there's this thing that happens to me in Alcoholics Anonymous, is that when I get a little squirrely and I get a little weird and I got a situation I can't handle, there's a new guy that comes up and he's got a problem, and it is the exact problem I'm working with today. And I got something for you, man. And so when I help you with your problems, I help myself with my problems. The next thing I was going to bring up is, I understand this Alcoholics Anonymous, and unfortunately for me, my family, and my neighbors, I got hooked on drugs. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to respect the traditions, but I'm not going to say alcohol in powdered form or outside issues. I'm going to say I smoke crack, and I'm not happy about it either. But yeah, I was born in Orem, Utah, and I have the best family. It is the perfect mixture of shameless and modern family. It is just the best. And I got these two older brothers. A lot of you guys might know them. Tom Cruise and Ryan Reynolds. Those are my two older brothers. And I got two little sisters, Martha Stewart and the Devil Wears Prada, right? And then there's Sloth, right, from the Goonies. There's me coming out. And, growing up, ever since I could remember, I didn't fit. I didn't look the way my family looked, and I didn't feel the way my family looked. I just felt different. I'm young, I'm 7 years old, and I don't want to be here anymore. I don't know what suicide is, but life just seemed super, super hard. And I just kind of went through life, 9 years old, how am I going to pay for my kids' braces? Where am I going to retire? Just these insanity of the future is just crumpling me. And the perspective of myself growing up, I could never see the truth about my life. I would have a birthday party and 45 kids would show up, and I'd be in the bathroom listening to Dashboard Confessional because I don't have any friends, man. I was just wanted to be sad. Sad was the state of being I wanted to be in. And I'll try and breeze through the early stuff, but there's a common thread in Alcoholics Anonymous where a lot of people felt lost, before they ever took a drink. And I really want to get that, and get that message out. In high school I played a lot of sports, and I'd always get hurt, and this thing would happen where I'd get hurt, I'd get prescribed pain pills, I'd never take them, I'd go to find them when I need them, and they're all gone, right? And finally I got this high school dance, I had really hurt my ankle, I went to go take my pain pills, and they're gone. So I just assume, being a young kid, that all drugs are created equal. So when I go in and I go to take just two Loratab 5s, one of my parents had Roxy 30s, right? And I'm taking two of them, and I weigh 110 pounds. And I went to that dance. It was a girls' choice dance. And I didn't go to that dance. I arrived at that dance. I remember every weird part of myself that have always been missing, like it showed up, and I'm dancing, and I'm happy, and I'm so excited for the future because I'm better now. You know what I mean? I can come out and play. I can do everything I've ever wanted to do. I'm confident. I'm handsome. I'm tall. You know what I mean? Like I got it going on, and I don't realize I didn't spend any time with my date during the dance, and she came up to me with this like real man. You know what I mean? And goes, "Hey, do you think you could get a ride home? I'm gonna go home with so and so." And it's like, you guys have a good time. You know what? And if it's that good, name it after me. I'm just so, I'm good. I'm okay for the first time. And unfortunately, I woke up in the morning, I was me again. And I'm really grateful I didn't associate that chemicals could fix the internal condition then, because the next, 5 years of my life would have turned out a lot different. One of the things I want to talk about is, suffering from like just depression constantly my whole life. One of the things I did is I went to one of my church leaders. I told him like, "Hey man, like I just can't stop thinking about killing myself. Like I'm really sad. I just don't want to do life anymore." And his response to me was, that's God's way of letting you know he's disappointed in you. And the separation between me and God in that moment ended. I'm doing everything I can, and I don't feel well. And if it's because God, I don't want it. You keep all of that. And so I just went a different direction with my life. I'm out of high school. Got in an argument with my parents. My dad asked me to leave, and I hit the road. And I'm not going to bore you guys with and then on Wednesday I did this, and Tuesday. But there was a cycle I got hooked into. And, I went out and I decided that, hey, everything I'm doing, I'm going to do the opposite because it's obviously not working in my life. So I went out and I went to my first rager. And my perspective of the event until 2 years ago was I went out with my best friend. We got super loaded. We had a really good night. I blacked out. I woke up. And we've just cherished this memory ever since. Well, I rekindled that friendship now that I'm sober. And he goes, "Bro, you went to that party alone. You blacked out drunk. They had to call me and I had to take you home." You know what I mean? And I had this story yeah, we were cool. And it was and it's kind of what alcohol does for me. It makes me feel like I'm not alone and I'm okay. And so the way I drink and, for me, because I black out when I drink doesn't make me an alcoholic. But when I drink and I feel better, that's what makes me an alcoholic. It's not what it does to me, it's what it does for me. The way I feel when I'm not drinking, is what I feel makes me an alcoholic. I spent the next, 10 years just moving. I was trying to find the place where people were decent. So I had this routine. I moved to Arizona, start partying. I'd get in trouble for my drinking. I'd reel it in for 6 months, get a girlfriend, get a gym membership, be good. And then at that 6 months, and one day, dude, I got to take a drink. I take a drink, I get in trouble, so I moved to Florida. Florida's good, get in trouble for my drinking, pulled in for 5 months. And it's just this thing where I'm just moving. I went to Arizona, to Florida, to Ohio, to California, to Oregon, and to Washington. And I'm coming back home in between, and I can't figure out why I can't find the right group of people. Why everywhere I go, there I am. And life's getting harder. And I ended up getting in a bad four-wheeling accident, and I got addicted to pain pills. And I'm a card-carrying member to every Suboxone clinic, methadone clinic, Kratom online shipping, if you could try it, I did it. Just trying to feel better. And so I'm just multi-addicted, always sick. It takes a small fortune to get me out of bed in the morning. It was just a bad deal for somebody who makes minimum wage. You know what I mean? But one of the things I wanted to touch on about being out there was there's a couple things that kind of carried with me my whole life. I could never do whatever I was going to say I was going to do, right? If I borrowed money from you, I wasn't going to pay you back. And if I started a project, I never was going to finish. But I'd finish it. And then one of the things my favorite people say is, I felt I should be rewarded for my family's success. You know what I mean? My brother works really hard in his business, I shouldn't have to pay taxes. Like, it's just, I wanted to be rewarded for their hard work, and I had a lot of entitlement. And, along the way, I ended up, I know this is a weird way to bring it up, but along the way, I ended up getting married to a woman. And I feel really bad about this. She's a good person, but there's something about really good women and complete trash bags that they just like, you know what I mean? And so I was living in my dad's cold storage unit, and she just left West Point. I don't even know what that is. It's a big deal. You know what I mean? She was working on her master's degree, and I was working on getting my license back. And I'm waiting tables at, I'm not even waiting tables. They don't trust me with that. I'm busting tables at Applebee's, and then taking tech support calls at graveyards, right? And I'm just living for the next drink, man. And she comes up and she's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I thought she was being mean to me. So I told her, like, hey, don't ever talk to me again. And boom, she was in love. You know what I mean? And we got like the funny stuff out of the way. I put that woman through hell. And I want to get to it in the men's portion of, my story. But the things I did to her is I constantly stole money. I never paid my half of the rent. I never paid my half of the bills. I was always gone. And I think, it says, I can't remember the words right now because I'm so freaking nervous, but anyone living with an alcoholic becomes neurotic. I can't remember it word for word. And the thing I would do to her is I'd wake up Saturday morning and I needed a drink. And she didn't like it when I drank in the mornings. So I would call her a disgusting name. I'd say something to her that I knew that she was okay with me walking out. And I'd leave, I'd go get well, and I would feel good. I'm okay now. So since I'm okay, we're okay. I'd come home and I'd be so nice to her. And so she had to live with this, for 4 years. Today it makes me feel really guilty because, I'm married, I married someone I met in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't treat my wife that way today. That's something you guys taught me. I'm back and forth, I'm moving around, I get married. I decide that, we're going to get married, so I got to clean it up. I go and I, meet Corey, let him know I got a plan, you know what I mean? I got a plan, let me do my plan. Alcoholics Anonymous, I said, was for poor people, right? I was homeless, right, at the time. I'm living in my brother's bathroom with the lock turned around, so I can't leave, You know what I mean? And, I'm trying to get together, and we moved to California, and I'm like, I just got married. I got a new place, a new job, and then my dad had given me some money. I'm like, dude, I have everything I need to be happy. And then as soon as we showed up to California, I met a homeless dude, and he said, hey, have you ever tried crack? I hadn't. But it took a situation where, when I would go to work, I could get these really proper jobs. I don't know if you guys could, I'm a great interviewer. I can get a good job. I can't keep a good job. And so, I got this, we're living 5 minutes from the beach. We got brand new Tacomas. I got this really good job. I got an expense account. I got a company truck, and I want to die. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, I've been on the street homeless. Nothing. Nobody called, no one for help. But a bottle, and everything's okay, man. I'm like, well, good luck. I'm just like one good thing away from just pulling it all together. I was out there, and I got horribly addicted to drugs. It was bad. I ended up getting arrested for some serious charges. Things were just going downhill really quick. I came back. She'd left. There's no argument. I don't know if you guys ever relate to this, but it got so bad, there wasn't an argument. I got caught stealing money. There was no fight, and I woke up, and she was gone the next day. I'm just so grateful that it worked out that way. I meant because I didn't want to fight with her, man. That's what I meant. So I leave, and that's at that point in my life, I ended up being homeless. I do a lot of stuff on the street. I'm part-time homeless, 2 months on, 1 week off. Somebody lets me stay with them until I break the rules, and life's getting really hard, and I'm getting beat up a lot. A lot of violence, a lot of stuff that I don't really want to share out, because I don't really want what happened to me out there to separate you guys listening in here. I don't want some of the stuff I did to, separate us, but there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of things that happen that, that situations I put myself in that were pretty terrible. And, my family put me in my first, treatment center. And I got out, I got kicked out, and I did AA the way I thought it was supposed to be done. I came to AA, I went to a lot of meetings, and I didn't do anything else. And the same thing happened to me out there, happened to me again, where I got to a point where being sober was the worst thing you could ever wish on anyone. Because the way I felt inside, untreated alcoholism, destroyed me. I went back out, like for a reason, some injustice to me, and I went back out, and, I got leveled out there. I mentioned earlier I got this really good way of getting these really important jobs. So I got this company to fly me out to Oregon to go work for them. Like, I'm living on the street, and I had to take this really complex test if I could pass the bar if I'm smoking meth, right? So I get this really fancy job. I get these really good tests. I go out, this is my new fresh start, and within 2 weeks they had fired me from that job for failing a drug test. And I cry, I'm homeless, I don't know what to do, I need help. And so they said, hey, we'll make you a deal. You can live in the apartment we're paying for, and you can work for us. We can't get anyone to pass the test, so we'll use your license. We're not going to pay you, but you can live here and we'll give you food. You just can't do anything crazy. I ended up getting fired from a job where they had stopped paying me. And that's really where the real story begins. I came back from Utah, and this is my favorite. I'm in Oregon. I get a call from their HR department, and the lady goes, hey, sadly to inform you, need to vacate the premises. We'll welcome around any of our facilities or anything we own. All right, I'm going to take my HR hat off. She goes, I've been sober and Alcoholics Anonymous for 17 years. I'll tell you, it's a lot better being on this side of the conversation than it is on your side of the conversation. So when you get back to Utah, you find us, and we can help you out. And I just remember thinking, lady, you don't understand. There's something else wrong with me. It's not alcoholism. I came back. The last 2 months out there before I got sober, I don't remember what happened. There's a lot of psychosis. There's a lot of things. I don't know what happened, but there's a couple of things I do remember, and it was, I showed up to my dad's house, and, I asked if I could stay, we called it the dungeon, cold storage, hey, can I stay in the dungeon for a little bit? And he said, no, man. He goes, you just want to die so bad, and there's so many people who want to live. I hope when you overdose, you do it by a hospital so we can use your organs and you'll finally be good for something. And that, dude, man, that just... it wasn't hurtful because it was mean, it was hurtful because it was true. You know what I mean? I'd been giving all these gifts and opportunities, and I didn't take advantage of any of them. When I went and I was in a car, I'm just drinking. Drinking, blacking out, waking up, drinking, blacking out, waking up. And I wake up one day and I'm seeing this family play in the park, man. And I'm waiting for him to take a drink, right? He was just being a good dad. I'm waiting for him to find a way to be present. And he didn't do it. And I remember thinking to myself, how come I can't do what that man does? How come I can't have a family? How come I can't go to work? How come I can't do any of that? And the thought came to me, it's because I'm powerless over alcohol. Because I can't not drink. I'm well, even if I could get over the drinking, I can't show up and do what I say I'm going to do. And for me, that was my first step experience. Not only can I not stay sober, my life is unmanageable from the inside out. My emotions and reactions to everything create an environment where I can't succeed or be happy. So I'm trying to think of what I can do. There's no hope for a guy like me. And there's a kid named Laxton. Laxton was a real trash bag. We were out there running and gunning, and this kid sucked. And when I was homeless, he gave me a call. I had a phone. My family still kept my phone on. And he's like, hey, I'm 8 months sober, and I really ripped you off. I took advantage of you, and I want to make it right. Can I buy you breakfast at Callie's? I'm like, yeah, living on the street, you have to come pick me up. But like, yeah, come buy me breakfast. And he sat down with me, and he's paying me back for like a drug deal that had gone bad. And but to him, he was losing sleep over it. You know what I mean? And so he sat down, he paid the money back. He knew what I was going to do with the money, and he did it anyways, because that's what he needed to do to stay sober. And he left, and I didn't think much about it. But in that moment, in that car, I had my second step experience. If Laxton can do it, anybody can do it. So I went to AA, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever had this experience where it's like your 50th time being serious about it. So people aren't just like, yeah, you need money for sober living? Let me do that for you. And so I didn't have a whole lot of options. So I went to, I won't say their name, but I went to a halfway house, like a real low bottom, like halfway house. Yeah, Chris went there. And they're like, hey, we'll let you come in here, but we have a couple requirements for you. 1, you need to have 7 days clean or a good drug test. 2, you need a job. And 3, you need $250. With that information, I thought, if I have those 3 things, I don't need any of you guys. Like, I'm good. But there was like a willingness that showed up in that moment, that gift of desperation that showed up that, I did it, man. I slept in my car. I ended up getting a job, just sleeping in my car. I would mow the lawn. I'd make these deals like, hey, if I mow the lawn, can I sleep on the porch tonight? You know what I mean? Like these like little things. And, a guy showed up in AA. He had 13 days clean. And this guy had 13 years sober. And he had been working on those 13 days for 4 years, man. He couldn't get sober again. And he was sober for 13 days, and he let me crash with him. He took care of me, drove me to the meetings. Like, this guy really looked out for me. And he said this thing to me, and it meant a lot, he goes, you're one of the lucky ones. And I don't feel lucky, And he's like, because you've got grace. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. He's like, you're done, man. You're gonna stay sober as long as you acknowledge the grace in your life. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know what that means. And he tells me this story, and he's like, I'm 9 years sober. I'm on a cruise ship, and me and my wife get in this huge fight. I'm gonna go drink. So I get into the elevator, and I'm either gonna go up to the bar or down to my room and go to sleep. And I couldn't make up my mind, so the doors close. They open up again, and a new set of people come in, and they're ecstatic. And the guy turns to him, just excited to share his news. He's like, hey, we were in this like really crummy indoor cabin, and they graced us with an ocean view. He goes, what does that mean? He goes, well, grace, it means you were given something you didn't have to earn or deserve. You know what I mean? And he tells me that story, and I thought of that gift of desperation, or like God showing up in my life. Something I didn't have to work for or earn. It just was there. Somebody said it the other night, and I loved it. It was God's son, the Son, just there, however I feel about it or not. I'm getting nervous. I'm on the street. I get this job. I get somebody to lend me $250. And my life is ready to start. I'm going to AA. I'm going to 9 meetings a day, right? I don't know if you guys remember being new. And I'm digging these holes. The first job I get is a minimum wage job for a decking company, a decking and fence company, in July, dope sick, right? And I'll tell you, that is the happiest moment of my life, man. Because every day I'd get done with my work, I'd come home, and I'd have just like a house full of guys just happy to see me. And, I don't really know how to incorporate this, but I got my first paycheck. It was like 2 weeks later. I'm 2 weeks sober, I get my first paycheck, and it was $189. I don't know if I borrowed $250. And so my plan was, when I get $750, I'm going to pay you your $250 back. And I remember thinking, this is the kind of stuff I did when I was out there. I would never, ever pay you back. So when we talk about living like a spiritual life, I think of this. And spirituality to me is just taking actions contrary to the way I feel. And so I paid him back the $250, And I ended up having one of the soup kitchen for lunch and to like make my meals and things like that. I remember it was the first time in a long time I felt like a man. You know what I mean? I was paying my own way. I was doing it right. So there's just so many sober living stories. My wife really wanted me to point out how poorly I lived in that sober living. Man, I'm like falling apart here, guys. I feel bad. What happened to me at that point, I ended up getting a sponsor, and I didn't really understand what we were doing in AA. And we went through the steps, and I didn't get anything out of it. I didn't understand what we were doing. I just wasn't all there, and we just kind of get through it. And I'm really grateful for my first sponsor because he just spent time with me. But I didn't learn it. I was kind of confused. So I'm 5 months sober, and I'm kind of lost. I did this 4-step thing. I didn't really understand it. I didn't get anything out of it. So I went to Tremble. I don't know if you guys know what it is. And I got my 4-step. I'm like, will you make this make sense for me? He's like, okay, what do you got for me? And he goes, okay, who's the first person on your list? It's Kyler. Okay, what did Kyler do? Kyler ate the lunch I had packed for work the next day as a midnight snack, right? What does that affect? Everything. You know what I mean? So we go to the 4th column, and he's like, well, okay. He's like, where were you selfish? I wasn't selfish. I didn't eat the food. And he goes, this is where you're wrong. And this is the first time I could start to see Alcoholics Anonymous make sense to me. He goes, who lent you the money to get into sober living? I was like, Kyler. All right. Who pulled you off the streets? Yeah, Kyler. How much money did you pay for that food? The state gave it to me. And I could kind of see it. And he goes, well, what would somebody who's had the blessings of AA in your life work for you? What would they do in that situation? I go, probably just make them a midnight snack with all the free food the government gave me. He's like, yeah. And I did that. And I could start to see the 4-step and the 5th step in my life. And me and my sponsor had a falling out, and I was just a free agent for a while. And life was getting dark fast, man. I was getting sick again. That depression came back, the not wanting to live. And I did what any healthy person in AA would do. Me and all my friends went to Wendover, and I lost everything. Every cent I have. And I didn't have a job at the time. And when you lose $500 at the casino and you're making $7.47 an hour, it is like you lost $100,000 at the casino. It is so bad. And I knew it. I'm like, this is it, man. AA doesn't work. Life doesn't work. I'm done. And I told myself, after the Sunday noon meeting, I'm going to kill myself. AA doesn't work. And I go to the noon meeting. I don't get anything out of it. And I come back. I'm thinking about myself. I come back, and I get on my knees, and I shut the door. And I say, the first prayer I said since the day I got sober. And I said, God, if you're there, I need you to show up for me. And there's this knock on the door. Knock. And I go upstairs, I answer, and this guy I've never seen before in my life. Joe, Joe R. You guys know who I'm talking about. Real twacked out guy. And he goes, hey, I had this weird feeling leaving the meeting that you might need some help, I've got some side work for you. If you want to do it, we can put some money in your pocket today. And I just remember thinking, God knows me, and I'm feeling a little better. And we ended up pushing snow for 24 hours straight, and I had enough money to take care of everything I needed to do. And then after that experience, I'm driving in the car with somebody. I'm in the back seat, and this man turns around, and he goes, you're not Brett's little brother, are you? He's like, yeah, and it ended up being Corey. Corey goes, hey, you had that plan, man. How'd it work out for you? And I asked Corey to be my sponsor, and he didn't want to do it. But he asked me a couple questions, and he said, all right, what's your prayer life look like? It's non-existent. How's your reading doing? Non-existent. How's your meeting attendance? Every day, He's like, what I'm going to need to do if I'm going to sponsor you is I need you to pray every day. I let him know that, hey, God doesn't care, And he said, well, I didn't ask you what you thought about doing these things. I asked you if you would do these things. And whether you do them or not, I'm going to go home to my family who loves me and sleep really, really well. So it doesn't doesn't mean, it doesn't change my life. I did those things, man. I thought prayer was the dumbest thing in the world. We're doing that. Corey explains that the allergy, man. I had no idea about the allergy. When I first read the doctor's opinion, I was hooked. I mean, like, oh, that's why. When I drink, I crave more. Like, oh, that explains everything. And then, we brushed over the 4-step again. And we hit a couple areas that I didn't really understand. One of the things with the sex inventory that just changed my life. You guys ready for this? Is I had this person on my sex inventory. And they would come up every single inventory, and it would be the prostitute, right? The escort, right? It was just like, and I couldn't find out why every time I write an inventory, this comes up. Like it was, it was a long time ago. Like it wasn't a big deal. And I realized that when I write inventory, I'm looking for every way I can to slander somebody. So instead of writing, who was it? It was somebody's daughter, right? I'm in there and I'm trying to slander them to let myself off the hook. So that's one of the things that we do in my sponsorship line is, if we don't remember somebody's name, we put somebody's daughter. But we don't tell them that till they have the written inventory. So, I learned about the 5th step. We're working on 6 and 7, and we hit 9. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. The 9th step. I don't know about you guys, but check city check. Check city check. Anything with the name city or check in it, I owe them money. You know what I mean? I can't get a bank account. I can't do any. You know what I mean? I'm hit, man. And so, my sponsor challenged me like, hey, you can do these things. One of the old timers told me when I was new, he's like, if you make all your amends and you donate 10% of your income, and then he goes, but not to the church, you're going to have a really easy sobriety. And so I went on that journey, and I would call up, check, cash city, whatever it was, and I would say, hey, I know I owe you guys $1 million, but I got 20 today, and I'm going to send it to you. And they say, well, sir, we'll only take a $5,000 payment. And I'm like, so I'm going to send that $20, and if you don't want it, I'm going to put my address on there. You can just send it right back to me. I didn't have anyone return the check. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this from the podium, but my first year sober, I made like $17,000 working like 3 jobs. And I paid back $24,000 worth of credit card debt. And I don't know how something like that happens unless you're involved in something like Alcoholics Anonymous. And a little becomes a lot, in the world of the spirit. It's one of my favorite sayings. Some of the other things in the 9th step that tore me up is I don't know where I put it, like I stole a car from my drug dealer when I was out there. And I'm sober driving it around. And I've got all these guys I sponsor that, I'm supposed to talk to them about amends, and here I am driving a stolen vehicle. And so, I tracked the guy down, I met up with him, and I gave him his car back. And I don't know if I told you guys about my credit situation. It wasn't like I was going to give him the car, go to Larry H. Miller, hop in a Hummer, and drive away. Like I was hit. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. And I gave him his car back, and he said something to me. He's like, hey, I'm going to find you, I'm going to tie you up, and I'm going to kill you. And I just remember thinking, happy, joyous, and free, man. This is what AA has to offer. And, I felt really bad about it. I ended up buying a gun before I talked to my sponsor. I was getting nervous. And I felt really dumb. A lot of people made fun of me for making that amends. They said, hey, if you're giving away cash or cars, why don't you do it to me, not these old, drug dealer guys. And the cool thing that happened is, one of the guys, I was afraid of him, doing all that. I called my sponsor. He's like one of those 6:30 in the morning, the world's going to end calls. These guys are going to hurt me. I live with my girlfriend. And he goes, you know what? I got some advice for you. Why don't you do the next right thing? And I go, I got problems, man. I don't need this AA bullshit. I need some real solutions to my real problems. He's like, what's the next right thing? I was like, well, I got my Saturday morning meeting. I was like, all right, go to that. He's like, go to that and call me. I went to that meeting, and that kid I was so nervous was there. He came and he grabbed me after the meeting. He said, I rode a Razor scooter from Mapleton all the way down to Provo hoping to find you because I need help, and I heard what you did about that car, right? He doesn't know what meetings I go to. And that was just another moment where, God knows me. That's my biggest fear in life is I'm not known. I don't exist. It's a mistake. Another one of the things, I got And, a little sister. She's great. Growing up, we were just really, really good buddies. And, I didn't show up to her wedding. I was afraid that I was going to get sick at the wedding and I couldn't drink the way I wanted to. So I didn't show up, man. It made me feel sick to my stomach. They had their first kid when I was 2 months sober. They had another kid, 3 years later. And I kept on trying to make these amends. How do I make this right? Like, how do I fix this? And I couldn't get a good answer. And she said, what I want you to do is I want you to know my kids. I want them to know who you are. So anytime there's some kid gift at Costco, we buy them those gifts. Man, we show up every month, we do something. But the cool part about that story for me is, they just had their third kid. And, they named him Ollie Brant. You know what I mean? And when I first heard that, it made me like afraid. Like, oh, this kid's gonna have a hard life. This kid's gonna have problems. And I remember thinking, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't act that way anymore. I got some integrity. Like, I'm an honest man. I work hard, and I just remember thinking, man, Alcoholics Anonymous gave me that. I got my dad. We'll lead into this. So, I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to move on, and I'm like this close to getting my first shoebox, right? And I have the money saved up for the down payment, and I'm about ready to buy the place, and I call my sponsor. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get my own place. And he goes, that's awesome. You must have made amends to your ex-wife. That's great. And I was like, well, I can't afford to do that right now, but after I buy my house, I'm gonna pay her back really, really quick. And he goes, I wonder what it's gonna be like living in a house you paid for with your ex-wife's money. Right? So we get together, I take the money out, and I'm pissed. AA has never done anything for me. Why am I doing this? And I get the money together, I get the check, and we did cash, and we got it worked off, we sent it to her, and I'm not going to get the house, I'm not going to get all the things. This is the only time ever I can have this opportunity. The cool thing was that was my last amends for my first inventory. Everyone was paid back. Everyone was good. The check city, cash city, everyone was good. I remember for the first time in my life, I can answer the phone without being afraid of who was on the other end. I could go to Walmart, any store, and I didn't have to worry about who I was going to run into. And I just felt so free. And then, God showed up in my life, and everything I wanted to do just ended up just working out better than I ever could have planned it. We got the house. I saved up for 5 years to get my teeth fixed. I got my teeth, everything I was able to just do. And A didn't take that away from me, with amends. It's not like, oh, amends are going to get it in the way of my growth. It gave it to me. Man, I'm running out of steam. I think the last, amends I'll go over is, I work with my dad. My dad used to do this thing when I was 15 years old working for him, is I'd be up on a ladder working, and he'd show up to a job site. He had me come down and meet his buddies. Hey, this is my boy. It's my boy. And when I got to be 19 years old, he quit doing that, because he's ashamed of me. It was the way I act. And I just been making him, here's the money for treatment back, rip it out. I'm just trying to do these things. And, the last, 3 years, I've just helped my dad do the things he couldn't do himself. Like what he did for me growing up. When we were on a job site the other day, and I was working, and he said, hey, man, come down here. I want you to meet my boy. You know what I mean? Just things like that just kill me, man. It's what Alcoholics Anonymous gave me. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to end sooner. I'm running out of steam. This is going a lot different than I thought it would in my head. But just the two things I want to cover is Alcoholics Anonymous changed my life, and changed my family life, and it gave me a reason to live. Sponsorship. I did the first 2 years of AA, half of this step. I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm going to stop there. 12 step. I'm going to work with others, or I'm not going to practice these principles in all my affairs. You know what I mean? And life got tough. So from year 3 to 6, I've been working on that second half of the steps. But, experience I want to share, I'm 2 years sober, and I lose my job. The girl I'm dating starts dating, my sponsor. I got to move out of my apartment. Like, everything's going like this shit. And I go, it wasn't Corey, not that sponsor. It wasn't Corey. Everything's going to shit. And I do what anyone does when their life falls apart and you don't have a job. You go to the nooner, right? And I show up to the nooner, and God put, dude, I walk up and I'll never forget it. It's like 18-year-old little kid sitting on the curb, just lost. And he was like looking in the mirror, man. You know what I mean? The hardest time of my life, the only thing that got me through it is helping other people. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, new guy, do you have a job? No, me either. Okay, we're going to get a job. You know what I mean? Awesome. What are you doing today? Nothing. Perfect. Do you have a big book? No. Okay, here's one. You know what I mean? And we, you know what I mean? And we used to care of each other, man, just sponsorship. And I jumped back into sponsorship, and I got the job, and everything worked out. And you know what? The kid ended up passing away. We went back out, and he didn't make it back, and it crushed me. I remember at the not the wedding, same difference, but at the funeral, just kidding, I'm like really happily married. At the funeral, I remember thinking, like, what do I do with this information? And the thought came to me is our very lives of ex-problem drinkers it depends on our constant thought of others and how we might meet their needs. So it taught me that when I'm struggling, I think of others, I help others. I'm coming to an end here, but I have a good life today. I'm married in AA. That's very interesting. I got family, I've got loved ones, I've got everything I've needed. I got a story I'm going to tell, and I'm going to wrap it up. About 2 months ago, or about a month ago, I finished this really big fire alarm job. It was super complex, super complicated. Instead of like doing it little by little, I just Hail Married it, and everything worked out fine. Everything was awesome, and it was so impressive. My dad was right there. For like 30 seconds, like he almost said something nice to me, right? It was like super impressive. And I leave, I go home, and I'm about to get in the shower, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I realize, hey man, you need a haircut, and you are really good at fire alarms, so you should be pretty good at cutting hair, So I get my beard trimmer that I bought in Sober Living for $9, 5 years ago. And I go to like cut my hair, and I get halfway done, and it just hits me that this isn't like like my blank canvas to express my art. This was a mistake. And, I found, the 20 pounds that I had gained, I found out where they were in my face. I found out, I'm balding, you know what I mean? That's what, for the hat, I know it's not proper to wear a hat up here. You know what I mean? And my wife came home, and I stepped out, and she looked at me, and she just fell on the ground. She started crying with laughter. She was tired. And all I can make out between her, like, little... is, you look so stupid. Your face is so round. You look so stupid. So round. And she like pulls it together, and she goes, have you been drinking? And I go, no, I haven't. And she goes, well, tell people you were drinking. My point of telling that story is, if you come to my house, you put the ear to my door, there's a lot of laughter. We're getting along. We're not fighting. We're not dragging. You know what I mean? There's a lot of laughter, a lot of peace. You know what I mean? Alcoholics Anonymous have given me the ability to show up for life. On my way home in the car, I'm going to, really mad about all the stories, all the amazing things Alcoholics Anonymous have given to me. But it speaks for itself, man. Honored to be here. Honored to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.